Hi everyone. I'm Maiko from Susan's family. Today I'll teach you how to make a cloud and loom cashmere scarf. For this electronic chart instruction, you can search susudiy.com on the website to view it. The front side of this scarf uses stranded knitting, and the wrong side uses stitching stitch knitting. After finishing both the right and wrong sides, we will crochet the edging. Now let's look at the pattern chart. We'll use the cable cast on method and work even following the stranded knitting pattern chart. The blank squares in the chart indicate knit stitches, and different colors represent different color schemes. Arrows show the knitting direction. On the right side, always read the chart from right to left, with row numbers marked on the right side of the chart. On the wrong side, always read the chart from left to right. Remember that on the wrong side, you need to knit the opposite of what's shown in the chart. Now let me demonstrate. To make it easier for everyone to see clearly, I'll use one strand of cotton yarn for this demonstration. For specific yarn, color schemes and straight needle sizes, please refer to the detail page of our product and the paper instructions. This scarf requires 2 colors. Here I'll name them color 1 and color 2. Let's look at the finished product. The flying dragon pattern in the middle can be worked using the stranded knitting method. The patterns on both sides are spaced far apart. To make the knitting more convenient, you can prepare 2 small yarn balls in advance as backups. Here I'll teach you the figure 8 yarn wrapping method. Let's wrap the small yarn balls. There are 2 situations. One is taking yarn from an independent yarn ball to wrap. The other is when the yarn is connected to the workpiece. No matter which situation, the wrapping method is the same. First, leave a tail of about 10 centimeters, or slightly longer. This yarn tail will be the thread you pull out later. Place it in the space between your left thumb and index finger, and pinch it with your thumb. Then wrap the yarn around your hand in a figure 8 shape. If you're wrapping a small yarn ball while the yarn is still connected to the workpiece, just wrap it like this. Pay attention, this end of the yarn is connected to the workpiece, which makes it easier to pull the yarn later. Wrap it with moderate tension. The more stitches in a color block, the more yarn you'll need to wrap. The fewer stitches in a color block, the less yarn you need to wrap. If you run out of yarn later, just join new yarn and continue knitting. Once you've wrapped it to the desired size, leave a tail and cut the yarn. Then tie a knot like this. You can start by wrapping around the middle a few times to secure it. If the yarn is slippery, feel free to tie a few extra knots. If there's a long tail left here, you can trim it slightly shorter. This is how you wrap a small yarn ball. When you use it, simply pull the yarn gently like this. The benefit of wrapping small yarn balls is that during knit, the yarn stays relatively secure. The ball won't slide off. When you have multiple balls, they won't easily tangle with each other. It makes knitting more convenient. If you're nearing the end of a small yarn ball and it starts to feel loose, you can take it off and re-wrap it. Or if you made a mistake midway through knitting and unraveled a lot of stitches, you can take that section of yarn and wrap it into another small ball. This end is still connected to the work piece. After wrapping, use some thread to secure this part well. That's all you need to do. Next, everyone can proceed according to their own situation. Prepare all the small yarn balls needed for starting the knit work. At the end there will be one last pattern, where the two ends are far apart. Don't forget to prepare extra small yarn balls in advance. Next we'll learn the cable cast on method. Please watch the demonstration. First, take out the corresponding yarn. Make a slip knot with the yarn. Under normal circumstances, leave about 10 centimeters at the beginning, to make it easier to weave in the yarn tail later. Pick up one end of a straight needle, or circular needle with your left hand, insert into the loop, gently tighten. This is your first stitch. Hold another straight needle or the other end of the circular needle in your right hand, using a pencil grip. Wrap the yarn once around your right pinky finger. Lightly pinch the yarn between your ring finger and middle finger. Place this yarn between your index and middle finger. This is the basic posture for knitting. After casting on the first stitch, place the right needle above the yarn. Insert it downward into the loop on the left needle. Guide the yarn with your right index finger. Wrap the yarn around and pull it through. Place it onto the left needle. Don't pull the yarn too tight. Otherwise it will be hard to pick up stitches later. This is your second stitch. Continue casting on. Place the right needle above the yarn. Insert it downward between these two stitches. Yarn over. Pull through. Place it onto the left needle. This is your third stitch. Pay attention, don't pull the yarn too tight. Continue casting on. Insert between the loops. Yarn over and draw through. This is your fourth stitch. Each time you insert the needle between two loops. Continue cable cast on. Until you reach the required number of stitches. This is the cable cast on method. Then knit row 1. This row is on the right side of the piece. Read the chart from right to left. The first row has only blank squares in the chart, which means knitting all knit stitches. As you can see, the first row forms a braid-like texture. The first row is now done. Next, let's knit the second row. This row is on the wrong side of the piece. Read the chart from left to right. Work the opposite stitch of what the chart shows. The second row also has only blank squares in the chart. In reality, you need to purl this row. The second row is now done. As you can see, the second row forms a horizontal bar texture. Starting from the next row, we'll begin the stranded knitting section. Let's first learn the method of stranded knitting. Please watch the demonstration. Stranded knitting. Here I'm using a small sample to demonstrate. First, knit a right side row. Read the chart from right to left. You'll need to knit with 2 colors. The squares in different colors on the chart correspond to different yarn colors. Please refer to the chart and use the corresponding colors to knit. First, join the yarn. We'll call the original yarn color 1 and the new yarn color 2. Tie a knot with the 2 yarns. Then pull the knot to the base. For any future situations where you need to join yarn, just refer to this demonstration. Then follow the chart and knit with the corresponding color yarn. Here, I'll first demonstrate a situation where you switch colors for every stitch. First, I'll knit 1 knit stitch, using color 1. Then hold both strands with one hand. wrapping them around the pinky and ring finger separately. This way, each of these two fingers holds one strand. Continue knitting one stitch with color 2. Picking up the strand from underneath color 1. After completing one stitch with the new color, you can see there's a strand carried at the back. Gently stretch the fabric, making the carried strand level with the fabric. Don't pull the carried strand too tight, to prevent the fabric from puckering. Continue knitting one stitch with color 1. Here, make sure color 1 comes from above. Remember to gently stretch the fabric. Once done, continue picking up color 2 from underneath and knit one stitch. Pay attention, when picking up the strands, make sure the two strands don't twist. After every time you switch colors and complete one stitch, gently stretch the fabric a bit to ensure it stays flat. In other words, don't pull this carried strand too tight. Continue knitting. Carry color 1 from above. And bring color 2 from underneath. If using only the index finger is inconvenient, you can use the middle finger to pick up strands when working with color 2. Once done, take a look. The carried strands of color 1 should all be on top, and those of color 2 should all be underneath. The texture looks neat and the yarns won't tangle. Actually, you don't have to worry too much about top or bottom, as long as the front side looks nice. This is the case when you switch colors on every stitch. Next, when a single color is used for no more than 4 consecutive stitches, you can still follow the demonstration shown here. Pay attention to the number of stitches for each color. By referring to the chart, don't make any mistakes in your knitting. If you have more than 4 consecutive stitches, you'll need to carry the other yarn along. Let me demonstrate that here. Carrying yarn for 5 consecutive stitches. First, switch colors and knit 3 stitches. Then use your index finger to pick up the other yarn and pull it through from underneath. Continue knitting 1 knit stitch with this yarn. The other yarn gets carried once. The carried yarn should also be level with the fabric to keep the fabric flat. Continue knitting 1 more stitch. Like this. The consecutive 5 stitches are done. This is the yarn carrying method. After each time you carry the yarn, you need to gently stretch the fabric. When carrying the yarn, always carry once every 3 stitches. Let me demonstrate carrying yarn for 7 consecutive stitches again. Remember to pick up the yarn each time. Make sure both strands don't twist together. Here, pick up 1 strand from underneath and knit 3 stitches. Then pick up this strand from under the other yarn and knit 3 stitches. Always gently stretch the fabric after each time you carry the yarn. Because of the carried yarn, the 2 strands will twist together. When knitting later, be mindful to separate them. Continue by carrying the yarn and knitting 1 stitch. That's how you complete 7 consecutive stitches. If there are more consecutive stitches later, carry the yarn a few times, using the same method as before. You can see, we carried the yarn twice here. Next, please follow along with this demonstration, and keep knitting until the second to last stitch of this row is completed. After finishing the second to last stitch, when working the final stitch, no matter how many stitches are in between, carry color 2 once. This completes the explanation for the right side row. Continue with the wrong side row. When working on the wrong side, we read the chart from left to right, and the chart represents the right side of the fabric. So on the wrong side, we should work the opposite stitch definition. Therefore, this entire row should be worked in purl stitches, with the yarn over the right hand. Insert the needle below both strands. Use the corresponding yarn to work one purl stitch. Remember to gently stretch the fabric, ensuring not to tighten the fabric vertically. Then pick up the corresponding yarn, and work the purl stitch as usual. When picking up the yarn to knit, make sure the two strands don't twist around each other. When working on the wrong side, after completing each stitch with a color change, gently stretch the fabric right away, ensure the fabric stays flat. If the number of consecutive stitches is no more than 4, switch colors using the method shown here. If it's more than 4 stitches, you still need to carry the yarn. The method is the same as when knitting on the right side. Here, I'll demonstrate how to carry the yarn for 7 consecutive stitches. Knit the first 3 stitches. Carry the yarn once, then knit the next 3 stitches. Carry the yarn once more, and knit 1 stitch. That's how you complete 7 consecutive stitches. With 2 yarn carries done. Next, refer to this demonstration, follow the chart, and keep knitting until the second to last stitch of this row is completed. Try to keep the layering of the 2 yarns consistent with the rows below. One yarn always stays on top, the other always underneath. This makes the texture look neater and more consistent. When you reach the corresponding position, you can also carry the other yarn on the last stitch. That's how we finish this wrong side row. This is the method for stranded knitting. If you need to join yarn in the middle, refer to the same yarn joining technique shown in the stranded knitting video. Now I'll use this swatch to demonstrate how to count rows. Each braid represents 1 row. The bottom braid was created during the cast on. Start counting from this top braid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the loops on your needle also count as one row, so here we've knitted 6 rows total. Then follow the chart to finish the front side of the scarf. After finishing the last row, we'll use the method of binding off knitwise to bind off. Please watch the demonstration. Bind off knitwise. Usually after finishing the stockinette stitch, you can use this method on the right side. When binding off like this, first knit 2 stitches. Then with the left needle, pick up the previous stitch and lift it over the next one. That's how you bind off one stitch. Continue by knitting 1 stitch. Then with the left needle, pick up the previous stitch and lift it over the next one. That's another stitch bound off. I'll continue binding them off. Each time, knit and bind off as you go. Now there's just 1 loop left. Stretch the loop. Then leave a yarn tail and fasten off. The length of the tail depends on the specific project. Usually leaving around 10 centimeters is enough. Thread the tail through the loop. Pull tight. This is the method for binding off knitwise. No matter which bind-off method you use, the way to secure the yarn tail at the end can follow this demonstration, and once everything is done, if you didn't leave a long tail on purpose for sewing, these short tails can be tucked into the fabric's texture on the wrong side. Try not to affect the right side's appearance. When weaving in the yarn tail, you can completely weave in the entire tail. Up to this point, the right side of the scarf is explained. Next, work on the wrong side of the scarf. Using the cable cast-on method. Work even in stockinette stitch. Since every ion's tension is different, you can also make a gauge swatch like this before starting to knit the wrong side of the scarf. Calculate the number of stitches for the wrong side by measuring the width of the right side. You can match the row count with the right side as you knit. Just make sure the final length is the same and ends on an even row. Finally, use the method of binding off knitwise to bind off. This bind-off technique has been demonstrated earlier. Follow the previous demonstration to finish off all the loops. No need to cut the yarn. Up to this point, the explanation for the wrong side of the scarf is complete. Once the wrong side is complete, take the right and wrong side pieces, place them with their wrong sides facing each other. Use stitch markers or waste yarn to secure the position roughly. Then crochet the edging. Next, I'll demonstrate the edging using these 2 small samples. Insert the hook at the ending position of the bind off on the wrong side. The crochet hook goes through both fabric pieces at the same time. Chain 1 to begin. Do not turn the work. Rotate the crochet hook counterclockwise. Pick up a suitable position on the right side. Insert into both fabric pieces at the same time. Don't worry about matching the rows exactly. Place the hook above the yarn. Catch the yarn. Pull through. There are now 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over the hook, draw through both loops. 1 reverse single crochet is complete. Let me demonstrate again. Rotate the crochet hook counterclockwise. At a suitable position, insert into both fabric pieces at the same time. Pull through. Work reverse single crochets all around the scarf. After completing the last stitch, join with a slip stitch to the beginning chain of the first stitch. The scarf is now complete. Everyone take a look. This is the effect of working reverse single crochets all around the scarf. Up to this point, the making method of this scarf has been fully explained. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website, Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next episode.